On July 1st, 1916, nearly 60,000 British soldiers were killed or wounded in a single day. That's the population of a small city, erased before sunset. We're diving headfirst into one of history's bloodiest battles, a 4-month industrial-scale meat grinder where every sunrise meant another chance to die. You'll see why almost every plan crumbled the moment boots hit the ground, how entire units vanished in minutes, and the chilling reality behind the 90% gone battalions that marched into the pages of history and never marched back out. And buried in this chaos lies a question no one dares to ask. Was the slaughter inevitable, or did the generals pull the trigger twice? If you were a soldier in 1916, would you rather face weeks in muddy trenches under constant artillery, or one single day in no man's land under machine gun fire? Tell me in the comments. Your choice says more about human nature than you think. In mid-1916, the Western Front wasn't just stuck, it was frozen in a nightmare no general could untangle. For hundreds of miles, the same scene repeated. Trenches carved deep into the earth, half flooded with icy water, walls crawling with lice, the air stinking of unwashed bodies and rotting corpses just a few yards away. Rats the size of cats feasted openly on the dead, sometimes gnawing on the boots of the living while they slept. Every sunrise brought the same horizon, a gray wasteland torn by shell fire, barbed wire twisted like the ribs of a dead beast, and the distant echo of artillery that never seemed to stop. When the maps showed no progress and the casualty lists grew longer than the victory reports, commanders turned to the only option left, a massive, all-or-nothing assault. It wouldn't just be a battle. It would be a gamble with human lives on a scale the world had never seen. Could 7 relentless days of shelling shatter the German defenses so completely that British infantry could just walk across no man's land? That was the promise. That was the hope. For a week straight, over 1.5 million artillery shells screamed toward the German lines, shaking the earth like an unending earthquake. British commanders were convinced. No trench could withstand such punishment. No soldier could survive that steel rain. But what they didn't see from their maps and observation balloons was that the Germans had dug deep, fortified bunkers 30 feet underground, stocked with food, ammunition, and machine guns ready to surface the moment the shelling stopped. The British faith in the god of artillery was about to be tested, and the god would prove cruel. Plans built on unverified beliefs are traps waiting to spring. The British believed the artillery had done the killing. In reality, it had only announced the attack. The Germans were not dead. They were waiting. Britain unleashed 1.5 million shells in the week before the attack. A storm of steel meant to pulverize every German trench, wire, and bunker. But here's the twist. Thousands of those shells never exploded. Some shells were old stock from the earliest days of the war, filled with unstable explosives or nothing more than sand. Others shattered harmlessly on impact, leaving barbed wire still snarled in machine gun nests untouched. British infantry, expecting a clear path, would instead find an intact killing field. Worse still, the constant shelling had warned the Germans exactly when and where the attack would come. In their deep dugouts they waited, counting down the hours until the shelling stopped and the slaughter began. When the guns finally fell silent, it wasn't victory that echoed over no man's land. It was the click of German machine guns being cocked, ready to greet the men who thought the battle had already been won. While British shells pounded the surface into a muddy wasteland, hundreds of German... These weren't flimsy dugouts. They were reinforced concrete fortresses, linked by tunnels, stocked with food, ammunition, and even electric lighting in some sectors. For 7 days, the men below felt the ground shudder, dust falling from the ceiling, but the walls held. When the last British shell fell and the sudden silence arrived, they didn't crawl out dazed. They climbed out ready. Machine power can decide the fate of a battle, and for thousands at the Somme, it decided everything. Some battalions and 80 were still on their feet, most of them wounded. The rest lay scattered across no man's land, unreachable, their bodies tangled in win by losing fewer men? The Somme cost Germany over 450,000 casualties, men they could not easily replace. Memorials and cemeteries dot the landscape, each one holding row upon row of white headstones, many with no name, only the words, "Known unto God." For locals, the war isn't just history. It's something the earth refuses to forget. Time may heal, but the ground remembers. Could a Somme happen today? Weapons. But they also have leaders who sometimes believe their tools are invincible, just like in 1916. The danger now isn't the lack of technology, but the false sense of security it creates. One bad assumption, one enemy adaptation, and history could rhyme in ways we'd rather not imagine. Weapons evolve. Human hubris does not. Somme was a warning, not a relic. It showed how flawed assumptions, poor coordination, and slow adaptation can turn a battle into a massacre. These are lessons that outlive the war itself, lessons that still matter in boardrooms, governments, and anywhere decisions risk lives. The Somme's legacy isn't just in numbers, it's in the resolve never to repeat it. The Battle of the Somme wasn't just a clash of armies. It was a tragic case study in failed assumptions, delayed innovation, and the staggering human cost of pride. More than 1 million men became casualties for a handful of miles, and yet, from the blood and mud, came lessons that reshaped modern warfare. Next time, we'll explore another war that broke all the rules and changed everything. This content is for educational and historical purposes only. It is not professional advice. Always consult qualified experts for military, strategic, or historical analysis.